Hey everybody, it's Makoa Goble with Lowkick MMA, and I'm with the one and only Christian Mancuso, the owner of Tarps Off Sports. He's running Front Row Fight Club now. I mean, Chris, you're making big moves, man. How are you doing today?
Makoa, good to talk to you, man. It's been a little while. You've been in this game a long time, and we've obviously crossed paths a million ways. So, first off, dude, I'm doing awesome. Pumped to have the promotion back up and running. Canada miles behind you guys in the States with the COVID stuff and took a bad break. But you know what, man? Everything happens for a reason. And now that, we're sitting here, I think 8 weeks out from fight night, like I'm fired up, dude. Everything's great. Great seeing you, man.
Thank you, thank you. So first, it's your son Jake's birthday today. Let's say happy birthday, Jake. How are you
Yeah.
feeling today as a dad? I saw your post today on Facebook. It was heartwarming as a father myself. Let's talk about being a parent. Does it motivate you more than anything else in the world?
Yeah, man, exactly. It does. I'm lucky. I have three children of my own and a stepson that I think the world of, all of them. But when you have your firstborn, like I had my son Jake, he's 13 years old today. I had him just as I was turning 19 years old. So obviously at the time for me, it turned my world upside down. But I will say without him, man, nothing that I have today would have impossible because I was one of those guys, McCall. I like to have myself a good time back then, hanging out with maybe some of the people he shouldn't have been hanging around, doing the things he shouldn't have been doing. But he was always that motivation to keep myself out of that lifestyle. And without him, man, I mean everything would be different. So yeah, happy birthday, Jake. That's my firstborn boy, and yeah, man, it's incredible. I appreciate you bringing it up. And yeah, being a father does, man. It really motivates me to want to be more than just that 9 to 5 dad, like especially when I have sons and they love sports as much as they do. And even for my daughter who was just born back in March, I want to have more than just possessions and things to leave them. Like I want to leave them with like a piece of myself, a piece of legacy, and something that one day the boys can overlook. So yeah, man, that's definitely motivating to me. I know you're a young father yourself, killing it, and like you said, man, all we can do is do the best we can and be the best examples we can.
That's right, man. And I got goosebumps when you mentioned that you want to leave something more than just money behind. You want to give them a legacy, something that they can look at and remember you by. And it gave me goosebumps because I had those same thoughts as soon as I had my firstborn kid, Isabel. Man, so before we dive into the event, we're switching back onto the MMA side of things.
Yep.
It was Tarps Off Fight Club at first. Can you talk about the change to Front Row Fight Club? Is it just a catchier thing, or what inspired that kind of rebranding, so to speak?
Yeah, so we got our event going. We had some pretty good hype, I think, for a show in Canada doing their first event. We really did get some steam going, and we get knocked out, COVID, whatever, it happens. So many businesses took a hit. We took a hit, but what I wanted to do was come back and come back strong. So we had originally planned to come back for the end of April, but in that time, um, I was approached by an online tech company from the UK, and they were like, hey, we're really into MMA. We've kind of been looking at getting into the space. We saw what you guys were trying to do, and we saw some of the online activity. There was a good hype behind it. We'd like to get involved. So, after about a month of me being like, I don't know, we'll see, him and Han, we get into some meetings, and the guys that are on board are super smart, super like, there's a whole new there's a whole new like way that the internet's going, and these guys are kind of at the forefront of like this Web3 movement. It's incredible. Now, one of the things was their Front Row Technologies. If they're going to come in, put the money and believe in us, they were like, what do you think about getting rid of the name? I'm like, well, first off, Tarps Off, huge thing with me. It was the first thing that I kind of branched out onto my own in this media thing. It was a little bit like a him ha at first. I was like, oh, I don't know. But you know what? The more I thought about it, like Front Row Fight Club, you think about sitting first row, there's that pristine to it. You know what? It was like Tarps Off is important to me and the people that maybe watch our stuff. But when we're talking about what we want to do, which is actually be more than just a Canadian regional promotion, we really do have plans to go all over, including our second show, which will definitely be in the United States right off the hop. It's like, you know what? Let's embrace this change. Let's embrace it. Let's take it. Let's run with a rebrand. I mean, tarps off. I even, I know UFC fighter Gavin Tucker, he asked about the name, and it's funny because after we had rebranded the name, I had heard he was like on the way home from the event. He was like, God, I hope they change the name of that promotion. So it ended up working out, I think we came out with a cooler name, but you know what? It's the same goal. We want to bring our own little spin and drop it into the world of MMA. Everybody has a certain way that they like to do things. You work for a couple very reputable MMA organizations yourself, but the appeal of what we do at Tarps Up. We're still going to keep that, ability to be yourself, be different, maybe not have so much restrictions on what you can say and not say, and really, really do try to put that, I guess, authentic foot forward. So with me, it's like the name's the name, the brand is the brand. If I got to believe in the message behind it. And once I knew I believed fully in what we were trying to do and the message behind it, it just became a name to me at that point. But you know what? I'm happier with Front Row Fight Club than I was with Tarps Off. I don't know why. There's something about it. I think everything happens for a reason. And I think that reason is this.
Yeah. And so based off what you said, I want to skip to a question I was going to ask you later. I think it would be a perfect time to talk about this, but I was going to dive into the June 25th card and stuff like that, but we can push that back because I think it's important that you talk about Tarps Off Sports. I think everyone wants to hear about the inception of Tarps Off Sports. They want to hear about the story of Christian Mancuso. How can this regular guy do such things in MMA? I mean, you started a website that made some waves for being something that people are going to say what's actually on their mind and what they want to say. You've told me the answer to this privately, but let's talk about what caused you to create Tarps Off Sports. Highlight the journey. What were some of the biggest struggles you faced so far?
The biggest struggles are, everybody can say, I don't care what anybody thinks. I don't care what anyone thinks of me. But when you put yourself out there and like you associate your brand with like yourself and Jack and me, like, Tarps Off, the way that I built it before he came into the picture was like, I was doing some media work, and it was for a company here in Canada, Dean Blundell. He was like the biggest radio show host in Canada. Super, super funny, edgy kind of guy, but more starting to pander his stuff to the other side of the aisle, maybe a little bit. I don't like to use the word woke culture. I think it's a little overused, but I kind of felt like at times I had to watch my P's and Q's, and it came to a point where there were certain things at the website that I was having to help out or talk about or do, and I kind of felt restricted back a little bit at times. And for me, I was like, well, if I'm doing all this stuff anyway, why don't I actually just jump in with both feet and create something that I thought that I could take and make mine and build it with the direction that I had in my head, which was, and you're seeing it now. I mean, the way when I started Tarps Off, it was way more, it was way more strict with almost that kind of woke concept and woke media. It was way more, you're seeing it loosen now. People are kind of over that stuff. And I think we were right to do that. But yeah, it was just, you know what? I wanted a platform where I could be myself and I could grab people that maybe weren't, the most well polished and didn't have a nice suit to put on to do their content, or a shirt or a tie. For me, it's like I wanted to make something for the common man by coming up with sort of an uncommon platform. And that's what I think we've done with Tarps Up. And I think that's why, Fight Companions, we were really early to those, and you've seen how massive those are in the MMA game now. And I think that's how we were able to pick up the followers and the views and all the stuff that we've done now, is just by resonating with everyday people.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be a common guy with an uncommon goal.
And I think you bring up a good point talking about the Fight Companions. That's something that you guys did early, because I know I came on board and I was and still am kind of a member of Tarps Off Sports, and I was one of your writers. But it was interesting to see the difference between your YouTube side of things and the writing side of things. Talk about how successful you guys are and were with your YouTube channel, because some of your Fight Companions got crazy views. I mean, it was upwards of, I think some of them were over 100K. I mean, you guys were pulling in almost 1 million views off of Fight Companions, and I think it's safe to say you have been a lot more successful on the media side of things as far as video media goes. What's the difference for you? And talk about the, I don't want to call it struggles, but the difference between the ease of success there and the writing. Has it been tougher to keep together a writing team that can stay motivated?
Yeah, it's exactly that. It's about finding a team that wants to come in, and you know how much work goes into this profession when you're writing. And the video stuff, knock on wood, I don't know why. I think it is because we resonate with everyday people, and I think that's a lot of the base of MMA and combat sports in general. But the video stuff has always come easy for us, and the written stuff, and even still to this day, which we've revamped the website. It was actually shut down for a bit because I wanted to get a lot of, before we decided when Tarps Off Sports came out, we were going to cover all sports and be here, and here. And then, like you said, the Fight Companions, everything that we were having success with was in combat sports. So it was more of a, like the written part of it, we're still miles away from where I want to be, and we still have a whole shit ton of work to do in that aspect. But yeah, we have found our luck in the video success. We were able to make the YouTube partnership program, or right on knocking on the door with Twitch partnership program, which is beautiful. Then you can start monetizing on those views. And yeah, man, you know what? The one thing I noticed helps a lot too is we'll kind of go into markets that everybody wants to be in the UFC. Everybody wants to be credentialed in the UFC. Well, for me, it was like, we started focusing a lot of our swing over to one championship and really trying to dig our feet in there. And you would be surprised how many return viewers, listeners we have from over in Singapore, or if it's the Philippines, or if it's Myanmar, any of those places out there, man. We really did use those places to kind of get those numbers up, because you know what it's like. Once you get past X amount of subscribers, it's like a mental thing for people. They see you at 982 subscribers, they probably won't hit subscribe. But if it just says 1K, it's just something that it does to the mind of people. So once we got through that point, it made it a lot easier. But yeah, the written stuff will still be a struggle. And I think that the world, even like podcasts, like shows and people, like unless you're super influential person, like I just noticed content's getting shorter and shorter. It feels like the consumer's time is getting shorter and shorter. Reels, things like that, quick videos, quick hitters. Those are things we're really trying to hone in on now as we move forward, because it's ever changing, man. I've only been doing Tarps Off Sports for probably about 18 months now total. We've been doing it, and everything's changed. Like, it's crazy how fast the internet moves. But so the biggest struggle, I guess, is keeping up to date. But on the written end of things, Makoa, I'm gonna have to come to you in private for some advice. Jesus here.
Yeah, hey, and you know that my DMs are always open to you, man.
Always, bro.
So before we move back to Front Row Fight Club, let's talk a little bit about one of the most slept on legendary podcasts in MMA history, and that's the Jake Shields podcast. Let's talk about that. What happened to the Jake Shields podcast? And let's talk about how legendary that was for Tarps Off Sports and the MMA world in general, and how slept on this was as a concept. And
yeah. So Jake, obviously, no one needs, if you know MMA, you know who Jake Shields is, founding member of the Scrap Pack, Diaz Bros. Jake, we found each other on Twitter. Ended up being like, oh, I'd love to get into podcasting, had those conversations, ended up hopping on. Me and Jake do the Jake Shields podcast. Now, I don't want to get anybody up there, but the Jake Shields podcast isn't necessarily gone. What's happened is Jake has actually had a few very high-end people reach out to him about doing some private jiu-jitsu courses. So right now, Jake's actually flying like weekly to go train high-level people in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and he's doing amazing at that. And when we had a talk about it, I really was like, bro, you got to go for this. Like, me and Jake can always pop the podcast back up, and I appreciate the compliments on it, because I agree. It was just getting its pop, but it was a super, super, super good show. And you haven't seen the last of me and Jake Shields doing stuff. It's just Jake has some business stuff that's way bigger than a podcast going on, but does have a date where it'll stop, right? It's just we're waiting to get to that point. So I
Wow.
would say
As of
look for maybe towards the end of the summer.
Okay, so the end of
Yeah.
the summer. Okay. We'll have to mark that one down in the notes there. So let's hop back into Front Row Fight Club.
Yeah, buddy.
Let's talk about it. Front Row Fight Club, Brawl by the Falls. How excited are you? And for the people that don't know, this was supposed to happen in 2021. I
Right.
think it was the Omicron, however you pronounce this strain.
Yeah, Omicron
COVID,
virus.
schmovid,
Yeah.
the boogeyman came in, and Canada, of course, being safe and
Canada.
cautious, Canada was like, no,
Pulled
live
the
events,
capacity out
nope,
on us,
that's
yeah.
bad. And Brawl by the Falls was canceled. And let's talk about the work that went into that. I know from talking to you and the people involved, I mean, the hours and hours and the fights that would fall through, the
Yeah.
hoops you had to jump through. Let's talk about that. I mean, just kind of go over what it was like working towards your first event, and then everything you kind of learned on that path, and including after it was canceled. And that, I mean, it had to have been like a shot to the gut, man. Let's
It
go over
was.
all that and rehash it.
Yeah. Yeah. So we put together this event. I think for a first card, we had a pretty good card. I would have liked to have seen us have some more bouts on it, but the bouts we did have were solid. And to get all the way to the day before the event, to have the capacity rugged from us, and to have, the situation we were put in where essentially, you just gotta roll with it and take your lump on the chin. It was tough, man, because like you brought up being a father, the amount of hours and man hours and work and conversations that go into putting on an event. Everybody just sees the product, but every little detail is hours upon hours upon hours upon hours of work. And when it happened, it was tough because, like you had said, oh, Tarpsoft did this, and we've always had success. And I felt like up to that point, everything we had kind of dipped our toes into, we'd been successful at. And to have something taken away from us that wasn't necessarily our fault, I had a really hard end of December and January with it. If you would have asked me on New Year's Eve, are you ever going to do an MMA event again? I would have said, absolutely not. I'm done. I'm not doing it. I'm over it. I don't even want to do it. Too much stress. Obviously incurring a loss like that when you get to that point. I mean, all the fighters weighed in, so we paid them, which I know most promotions wouldn't do. But then again, that's what's wrong with most promotions. It's like,
Yeah.
we took a financial hit too, which was tough to take. But you know what? It was about February time where we started to look at the end of April, and I started just being like, you know what? Let's give it the kick. I think that not only do the athletes that we would have signed or could have signed had it been a successful show deserve it, but I deserve it myself. I'm my own hardest critic, and I beat myself up after that, and it was easy to just, kind of tumble down the mountain a little bit as far as being like, it was a mentally traumatic thing that happened. So,
Dude, it was. And I know you're one of your main matchmakers, Sergio. He's also been a friend of mine for a long time now.
Yep.
And I talked to him about it, and I also talked to you about it, and people like Ben Davis, who was supposed to commentate that.
Yeah.
Like, this was going to be like a very big deal for a lot of people involved. Like,
right. And no one got burned other than me. I always tell people anytime they're so bummed out about it. Like, no,
I wanted to talk about that. And I wanted to talk about that, but I didn't know for sure, like how, if you actually paid everyone. I didn't want to be like, oh yeah, you paid everyone. And then you'd be like, oh, actually I didn't, but you did though. And I think that's crazy. And without getting too nosy into the financial side of things, I mean, like, how did you take a loss like that and bounce back in this capacity? I mean, that's so savage if you actually sit back and think about it. So, I mean, if you want
what happened, yeah. So, like I was saying, like you brought up Ben Davis. I mean, everybody sees him. He's got his own personality, and like, he's someone who can flourish under what we're doing. Not everybody's going to allow Ben to be Ben, but we see Ben, and Ben's incredible. And for me, it was like, yeah, we lost our event, we lost this and that, but to be able to put the event back together and get it together for, like you brought up, Sergio and Ben, like it's important to me that we all get back through this and put this event off because we all deserve it. Like you said, Ben Davis put in a ton of work. Sergio puts in a ton of work. Jack put in a ton of work. And,
Yeah.
that's why it was like important to get rid of the woe is me and this fucking happened and change it to be like, well, let's get fucking back after it and get done what was supposed to get done. Because I mean, I think if you talk to anybody, it feels like unfinished business, which is actually kind of makes it fun. I always like flourished in sports and things like that when we had a little bit of a chip on our shoulder. You felt a little bit of the pressure coming down, and it's like I have a huge chip on my shoulder for this event, and we all want to pull it off together. So it's been interesting, and we have a couple fights that one that's out there now that was going to be on the first card. Xavier Nash, absolute killer, 155er from Niagara, who actually just lost a split decision in his last fight to Scott Hudson, who's known as one of the best in Canada. Pretty rough decision for Xavier. Anyone who watched that fight, pretty much everybody had that score.
He is
for
3-1 though in his last 4.
Yeah. Coming in against 11-2 professional boxer Jordan Ballmer, just fought for the Canadian middleweight title. He came up short, but to even be in that fight, as one of Boxing Canada's top fighters, to have him transitioning into MMA, that fight, the MMA versus boxing, from a promoter standpoint, it's just a dream to sell. But Xavier and Jordan are both animals, dude. And one of the fights we actually just secured today, I can't say too much about it, but if you kind of look at who Jordan Ballmer rolls with and trains with, if you go look at his team, one of his teammates is coming down for a fight against a guy who probably has the most viral knockout in MMA history. So you know what, this card, man, I think it's going to be even more exciting than what we had in December.
Ooh, well, you're throwing me a bone with that one. I'm gonna have to put my journalist hat on after this call, and I'm gonna have to figure out the name, social security numbers of these people, front backs of the credit cards and everything, because that's how deep we go here at Lowkick MMA. Taught from the one and only OG of Tarp Soft Sports, Chris. This was amazing. We're almost out of time. I think we have about 10 minutes left before you have to go. Let's talk more about this debut event. Like, talk about like the logistics behind everything. Like, how do you approach like the venue? Like, was it hard to find a venue? I mean, I'm not very positive on Canada and their COVID restrictions, but is everything fully back to normal?
Everything is fully open now. So we were dealing with, not only did we have mask mandate then, which is gone now, but there was a vaccine passport when we were trying to do it. So you could only come to the event if you were vaccinated, which is bullshit. And I listen, I don't care what side of the vaccine you're on. I took 2 shots, never going to take any of that shit again. I did what I thought was right at the time. I don't want to even hear about it, but to think that you couldn't have people that were unvaccinated come to our show made me sick, dude. So legitimately being at the convention center in Niagara Falls, it's a big, beautiful establishment. And I've been to many good boxing events, whether it be professional or charity there. For me, I grew up in Niagara Falls as a kid. So to be able to put my first MMA promotion, first event off and get it off in my home city, man, it means a lot to me. Now, are there some logistical things that sometimes make doing business a little harder in Niagara Falls than you would other places? Yeah. Is there kind of like, I'm not trying to say like the people of our parents' generation at times are a little bit of a pain in the ass to deal with, but they're just not like as forward thinking maybe at times. And this isn't about the venue. This is Niagara Falls as a whole. The venue, the convention center, they've been great and stuck through and are always really supportive. But yeah, you have your little challenges when you go to each city or each location that we're going to go to, and there'll be spots and things that pop up from each of them, man. But you know what? On Saturday, June 25th at the Niagara Falls Convention Center, man, we plan on bringing the absolute sporting event to the summer, to the Niagara region. And I think it's going to be an absolute banger.
Yeah, man. And I think that is a crazy story. Like, I'm gonna have to have like a longer interview with you in the future, of course, like where we really just get in depth with everything. And I'm gonna have to do like a
Anytime.
big piece on you because I think this is a big story about a story of one of MMA's most like hungry up and coming promoters. Like, this is the more I think about it, it's a crazy story. Like, you were a writer yourself, and you weren't a big fan of the way that big time MMA is doing things, because like as writers we're kind of censored. Like, if
Right.
I feel like fighter name one sucks, I can't say that because we have to respect them. But as
Right.
someone that's like, I'm also a fighter. Like, I haven't had a fight yet, but I've trained. Like, I've put in my
Yeah.
time. I trained for years. So I guess I can't say I'm a fighter, but I am someone who've trained. And
Yeah.
there's so much like disrespect that gets thrown our way too, because like no matter what,
Oh,
you
you
want to
guys get shit
respect it.
on, and then some of the fighters treat the media like they're like this
Yeah.
enemy. But it's like, man, listen, there's two sides to everything, and business is business, man. It's like like sometimes I think when the fighters are like that to the media, it's like if a criminal doesn't like the police, it's like, you guys are doing your fucking job. What are you talking about? Their job is to catch you. Their job is to bring the news, right? And if you mess up and do something that isn't really smart, and it's going to be a story that people want to read within the fan community, you just got to deal with that, right? So yeah, no, I get it, because you guys take a lot of shit in combat sports, especially the written journalism. The fighters are a little harsh on you guys, so
Yeah.
it's funny, man. It's funny the way that all that stuff goes. But you know what, it's it's about crossing, it's about walking that line of like respect, right? Like, if you
Yeah.
think maybe a fighter,
Yeah, and
sucks, I
I might
mean,
have been a little brash to say like I want to say someone sucks, because it's not that. It's like let's say an example of like a Tony Ferguson, like as
yeah,
someone
he's
that
gonna get
absolutely.
demolished by Michael Chandler. I can't even believe they're doing that fight.
Exactly. Like, as someone that's a giant fan of Tony
Yeah, but
Ferguson to the absolute max, to where it's almost like hero worship. Like,
yeah,
I don't want to see that fight, because it's just like if you gave Gaethje a rematch with Ferguson. Why would you do that? Why would you
right.
put Ferguson through this again? He's gonna have CTE and he's gonna be throwing imaginary sand.
Right,
I
right,
mean,
right. But if you put that in, people are going to be like, oh, you're downplaying the matchup. Your editor might be like, no, we're not going to go with that because, like you said, they don't want to kill down the product. But at the end of the
yeah,
day, yeah, Michael Chandler versus fucking Tony Ferguson is one of those matchups that just, I'm so scared for Tony, because I agree with you. He's one of the best. He's clearly lost a step, clearly. Kind of reminds me of when Chuck Liddell was at the end of his career, where you're just like,
yes,
fucking stop, man, stop before something
yes,
fucking bad happens. And it did happen to Chuck. I hope it doesn't happen to Ferguson, but I think he's in massive trouble when it comes to Michael Chandler, and I'm super
yeah,
worried for him. But yeah, man, no, I agree with you. It's tough when you feel like you have a little bit of restrictions, a little bit of chains on you, when you want to say like, this is a fucking horrible matchup for this guy, or this is a terrible
yeah.
matchup for this guy, and you can't say that, or they don't want you to spin it that way because there's other motives or means that they have that they need to get out of that card, where they don't want it being downplayed. I get it, man. It's all I can say to people writing or doing anything is just be as authentic as you can. Every life's a game, right? Sometimes you got to play the game a little bit, but I think we're seeing the tide change, and luckily in MMA, if any sport or any and combat sports in general, if there's anywhere you can push the envelope, at least you can do it here.
That's right. And I don't want our video to get cut off by time restrictions. So, is there any final message you have for the fans, for the people that are excited for the debut of Brawl by the Falls and Front Row Fight Club?
Hell yeah, man. Saturday, June 25th, whether you're near Niagara or not. I mean, tickets are available at fallsconventions.com, but if not, we will have our own pay-per-view service that we're working through right now. We're actually going to run our own pay-per-view, and it's going to be a lot more affordable. The one thing is like, our competitor BTC, if you want to order their pay-per-view, it's $40. Now, listen, I love these guys. I love regional MMA, but for the average fan, who Dana White already jacked the price of the pay-per-views up to $75 this year, you know, $40 is a lot, and we're gonna make sure that that isn't the case here. And we'll definitely be coming out with in the next couple weeks with a much, I think, more fan friendly platform, guys. But yeah, we're FRFC MMA on Twitter, Front Row Fight Club on everything else, and man, we look forward to it. and it's going to be a fantastic night. And like, I can't wait to get the team and everybody back in Niagara and get this event off.
Yeah, man. Well, thank you so much for stopping by, Chris. We're going to have to do this again, and best of luck with the debut to Front Row Fight Club, man.
Thanks, brother. Thank you so much, guys. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care.
Make sure to subscribe to the Lowkick MMA YouTube channel for all the latest news, event previews, and interviews with some of the biggest stars in MMA.